Good afternoon, Kmart shoppers. Mr. Judd with another little Gecko Math Minute for you. Today we're going to work on some comparing integers and finding out what absolute value is. We've got some words worth knowing today, and I believe a couple of them should be familiar to you. The first one is an integer, and I'll talk about that in a moment. A negative integer, a positive integer, absolute value, and opposites. So we've got 5 that we'll be talking about. First, let's talk about an integer. Okay, basically an integer is a number. If you look at the bottom of my screen here, you can see that I've got an integer, a bunch of integers on a number line. Excuse me. It starts at 0, and we can go this way, 1 through 4. We can go this way, -1 through -4. So an integer is any of those numbers that would be found on a number line. Now we've got 2 kinds of integers to talk about. Positive integers and negative integers. When you start at 0 and you count like you normally would, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are numbers that are positive integers. They are on the positive side of 0 on the number line. If you go to 0 and you go the other way, you will see that there is a little negative symbol in front of the integer. That means it's negative, smaller than 0, a negative number, and it goes to the left on a number line. Next, we need to talk about absolute value. Absolute value shows how much a number is worth. You agree with that, Mr. Lemoyne?
I do agree with that.
See, he even agrees. Basically, you have to think about how far from 0 a number is located. For example, the number 3. Oops, that's my pointer. There's the pencil. Number 3. How far from 0 is 3? Well, it's 3 spaces away on the number line. The absolute value of 3 is 3.
What about -3, Mr. Judd?
That's a great question, Mr. Lemoyne. -3, which would look like that, the absolute value of that is the same. It's 3. You have to look how far away it is from 0 on a number line. So for example, when I'm finding 3, I've got 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. So positive 3, the absolute value is 3. And when I go this way, 1, 2, 3, to -3, I can see that it's 3 spaces away from 0. Even though they have a different symbol, they are still having an absolute value of 3, because that's how far each one is away on a number line. Takes us to our last one. What is an opposite? Actually, Mr. Lemoyne and I just talked about opposites. Those are numbers that are the same, for example, 6 and -6, even though they don't have the same value, they are opposite numbers, okay?
Because they have the same absolute value.
They
right,
have the
Mr.
same
Judd?
absolute value. Thanks for clarifying that. Except one of them has a negative symbol, the other one does not. They're still 6 spaces away. For example, Mr. Lemoyne, can you think of another pair of opposite numbers?
Well, let's see. I see that there's a -2 here, and that's 2 or 1, 2 away from 0, and then 2 in the opposite direction would be 2. So 2 and -2 must be opposite numbers because they have the same absolute value.
Very good.
This is like talk show radio.
It is kind of, absolutely. So how does absolute value work? Well, absolute value can work 2 ways. You can look at an integer and it will tell you how far from 0 it is. For example, 5 is 5 spaces away from 0 on a number line.
Mr.
By the
Judd,
way,
what are these numbers, Mr. Judd?
Well,
I mean, these lines here.
I'll show you that in a second. I need to apologize for this big, long diagonal line. It got put in there by accident, and I hadn't quite figured out how to take it out. These that you were referring to, it looks like the number 151, doesn't it?
Yes.
Actually, these are a type of bracket that we put in front of numbers and behind numbers to signal absolute value. So if you see that in a math problem, they're asking you, what is the absolute value of that integer?
They're usually longer than the number 1 anyway, aren't they?
They usually are, absolutely. Notice the 5's a little smaller. So that 5 is 5 spaces away from the 0 on a number line. Now let's look at -3 right here. Well, the absolute value is -3. Actually, that isn't correct. When we talk about absolute value, we just want to know how far away this is from 0 on a number line. it's 3 spaces away. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3 spaces away. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you find opposite numbers. Again, Mr. Lemoyne and I talked about it, but again, we'll just see if you can figure this out. For example, if I circle the number 4 right there, what would be an opposite number of 4? Yes, you guessed right. It is negative 4. Why? Exactly, because they're both 4 integers away on the number line. Even though negative 4 has the negative symbol, they are still having the same absolute value. Okay, that brings us to a little math. Let's see if you can evaluate one of these expressions. We've got the absolute value of a plus 9. Now I see that a should be equal to negative 5, so I would plug negative 5 right in here. Well, I need to know the absolute value of negative 5. Well, I know that negative 5, the absolute value of it, it's 5 integers away from 0 on a number line. So I'm actually saying 5 plus 9. I'm pretty sure you can figure out the answer to that one. And finally, we've got 12 minus the absolute value of negative 5. So again, I'm plugging the negative 5 in here. Well, let's see. I know that the absolute value of negative 5, again, it's 5 spaces away from 0 on a number line. So that's the same as saying 12 minus 5. I think you can figure out the answer to that one too. Okay, we've got some practice problems. I'd like you to try 3 of them. We've got practice problem number 1, practice problem number 2, and practice problem number 3. Okay, as you can see, they all have the absolute value symbol in here. And if you looked at the top of the screen up here, you can see that x is equal to negative 3. Make sure you write these 3 problems down, bring them to class with you tomorrow, and if you have any questions, make sure you write them down so you don't forget. Have a good night.